Alright, so this is a little art experiment I decided to try. This program is Krita. I used Krita in the creation of this project. I also use my XP Pen stylus and tablet. So just for your sake, so you don't get bored or so you've got something to listen to, I'm gonna back it up with a couple of meditation tracks and some weird noise tracks that I've designed. This is going to be about an hour long. I've sped this up about 400%. So what I did, I took a photo of myself and I just vampirized myself. I turned myself into a vampire, more or less here. So yeah, the background noises and music are just some experimental meditation tracks that I've previously made, and I'm also going to put a couple of episodes that I did in a podcast that I ran for a little bit. That kind of got shut down by Twitter, but yeah. So just enjoy. Zal'auran's Coin. An allegorical account, written and narrated by myself, Thomas Wright. Those that manage to overcome their innate tendencies toward continuous material growth and replace them with non-material goals will be the only ones to survive this crisis. From the essay titled Natural Selection of Stellar Civilizations by the Limits of Growth, by Michael D. Papagiannis, published in 1984 by the Quarterly Journal of the Royal Astronomical Society, Volume 25, page 309. The gods, or rather what we humans might call gods, came into being with the birth of the cosmos. Zal'auran was among the first, as it was the distinguishing essence, or god, of order and chaos. For eons, these beings found fulfillment in the cycles and balance throughout their domain. For eons, these gods were, for lack of a more appropriate term, happy. That is until quite the unexpected event occurred. Off in a distant corner of a most ordinary cluster of material on the surface of a mediocre planet, a small pocket of material birthed within itself a structure with the most extraordinary property of self-assembly. Along with this unforeseen event, a new god was born, whose essence was that of replication. As the new member of the pantheon grew and became more and more adept at the secrets of its realm, it found more fascinating and brilliant ways for these materials to grow and multiply. Pockets of its work were found across the universe, and in various and surprising forms. The others marveled at its skills and quickly welcomed it into the fold by christening it with the name Tect. Though Tect and Zal'auran often worked together to maintain proper balance, quarrels were not uncommon between them. At some point, Tect had uncovered a rather profound truth about its family of self-replicating materials. What he discovered was that there exists a threshold of complexity that, once surpassed, would enable these materials to evolve on their own without any intervention, perhaps even to the point of becoming gods themselves. So secretly, Tect set to work, taking care that the other gods remained ignorant of its plans. Tect thought it fitting to engage the experiments on the self-same mass that birthed the very reactions from which its own existence resulted. Now, when the others did finally discover Tect's clandestine activities, it was far too late. The replicating materials had already begun to show signs of intelligence and awareness. The Pantheon was furious. They held an emergency council, expressing their distaste for Tect's actions. Tect, of course, did all it could to defend its actions, but the others would hear none of it. The Pantheon requested Tect remove itself from the meeting, so that they might decide amongst themselves what should be done about these unsanctioned and potentially dangerous replicating materials. The closed meeting was incredibly time-consuming. The gods evaluated and calculated many infinities of simulated possibilities. Eventually, finally, Tect was recalled for the verdict. The Pantheon had decided that the punishment should be carried out by Zala Auran, being that which mediates between order and chaos. Zala Auran was to damage the materials beyond repair, yet in such a way as to leave the rest of the system at large unscathed. Tect's punishment took time, finesse, a nudge here, a tilt there, and sometime later the trajectory of the small prepared mass will perfectly intersect with and impact the same body upon which Tect engaged its experiments. All the while, Tect pleaded with Zala Auran to reconsider. Despite their differences, they had spent more time together than any of the other gods, and Tect had hoped that this might give him some edge, some tiny sliver of influence. Time was short, and the large broken mass would soon collide with Tect's world, and Tect finally gave way to acceptance of its punishment. The large mass maneuvered through the system of orbits and thunderously collided with Tect's world. Grief-stricken, Tect retreated to a cold and undisturbed corner of the cosmos. Zala Auran found Tect's hiding spot with little trouble. Knowing Tect would not communicate directly, the god form sent a small, unmistakable message. The essence of the note, if you can call it that, relayed the basic idea that Zala Auran had not, in fact, destroyed all of Tect's children. The collision was but a show for the other gods. Zala Auran had a different plan in mind. After some time, as to not arouse suspicion, Tect returned to the Pantheon, seemingly still mourning the loss of its creations. Both Zala Auran and Tect would often return to Tect's world together to observe the progress of the materials that had survived the cataclysm. While Tect tended to the materials, Zala Auran simply watched, silently watching the system's complexities and rules. Though they worked to shield the world from the others to the best of their abilities, and succeeded for some time, eventually, as before, the Pantheon became aware of the deception and, again, as before, became enraged and summoned both of them for a council. Tect was noticeably terrified, yet Zala Auran seemed quite undisturbed. They called Tect first, who again pleaded that they spare his world. Much like before, it seemed its pleading fell upon hardened minds. However, when they called Zala Auran to account for its actions, Zala Auran quietly and with confidence revealed to the Pantheon that its plan was yet unfulfilled. The collision was to quiet their minds, while the real plan was carefully prepared. Zala Auran knew that had its real plan been revealed at the beginning, it would never have been accepted. It knew that Tect's children had to mature in order for the true plan to work. So, Zala Auran invited the others to come and see Tect's world while it described its plan. The other gods were in awe at Tect's accomplishments, for until now, none of the others had taken the time to observe the world directly. There was a harmony to how the materials interacted. Many of them had indeed become sentient. there was one particular species that had learned to manipulate its environment through rudimentary creation and the use of tools. Zala explained to the others that even now, it was just too early to truly judge Text's creations. These replicating materials, Zala believed, should be judged according to their own merits. After all, they were still quite confined to the Mother Mass, and, as their previous attempt to predict the many possible outcomes had demonstrated, their future was quite unsure, and beyond the Pantheon's capacity to determine. So Zala explained that it had prepared a test. Just as the material's complexity had determined its ability to begin replicating on its own, so too, other forms of both complexity and chaos are doorways to a vast many other abilities and properties. It continued to explain that within the next few iterations of the material's evolution, a threshold would be reached. This threshold is likely to imbue several of the species with a coherent sense of self. It is at this point, Zala continued, that the true test will begin, and Text's children will undergo a rather difficult, if not lengthy, test of their own true potential and character. After many a council, the Pantheon finally agreed. Zala test would be permitted. Back on Text's world, as Zala had predicted, the elder species had undergone several gradual changes. Complex collectives began to form, and labor was divided among the many members of their society. They developed communication. They developed a sense of awe and an appreciation for difficult work performed by other members of their species. Each new development allowed them to venture further and further from the place of their birth. The other gods marveled at the regularity and the surprising nature of each new development. Many of the gods rendered an apology to Tect, and Tect was wholly forgiven. And finally, all of the requirements necessary for Zala to begin his test had been met. One of Tect's children, a young member of a species named Arkun, was traveling to the neighboring village to trade some furs. However, the closer he got, the more unusual things seemed to be. It appeared that all of the villagers had gathered quite tightly around a very tall and dark figure. Arkun, being a cautious young man, thought it would be best to stay out of sight and approach as quietly as he could. Once Arkun was at the village entrance, he sneakily and slowly slithered along the outside wall, when suddenly, standing before him was a tall, dark, and terrifying creature, seemingly composed of the night sky itself. As the huge creature's towering figure bent forward to peer down at Arkun, the creature said, "I am Zala. I have been waiting for you. You will follow me, son of Tect." Zala then led Arkun into the very center of the gathered crowd, and as he spoke with a thunderous voice. "You are the children of Tect, who is my sibling. We are a simple, two beings of a family of thousands, each the god over one domain or another, of all things that exist. I have been charged with testing the children of Tect. As you are the first of your kind, we must know that you will not undo what we have done, that you will not become a menace to the natural order, our order. I bring you a blessing and a curse. It is a tool for growth, yet if it is misused, it will bring about pain and suffering 1,000 times that of anything your world can inflict alone. If you fail, the children of Tect will be erased from existence. If you prove yourselves worthy, you may even become gods yourselves. Zala'auran continued. The test will endure for thousands upon thousands of lifetimes. Should you accept, you will affect the lives of each and every one of your descendants until the test is concluded. Should you refuse, the gods will be forced to destroy every living creature that calls your world home, including yourselves. Of course, Tect's children unanimously accepted to endure this test, knowing full well that they made this agreement for themselves and for all others currently living and all those who will ever live until the test is complete. Upon acceptance, Zala'auran dropped down to the level of Arkun and exchanged one of Arkun's furs for one insignificant metal circle, thanked the young man, and vanished. Where Zala'auran had stood was now a large chest filled with many of the same strange, small metal objects of various metals, shapes, sizes. Tect's children quickly understood the utility of Zala'auran's coin. Zala'auran's gift brought on a new era of commerce. The coins enabled an unprecedented capacity for advancements and growth. Zala'auran knew, however, that even though its gift would amplify and quicken productivity, solving many of the creature's issues, the secret of God form also knew that after thousands of years, even if they managed to mature and wield the gift correctly, these creatures, being Tect's children, and taking on many of Tect's qualities, would discover many means of manipulating their environment. Like Tect, they will begin to develop their own technologies. Zala'auran also knew, being the god that keeps the balance between chaos and order, that Tect's children would undergo a technological phase change. This tipping point, wherein their technological advancements will progress at an ever-increasing rate and, unavoidably, collide with Zala'auran's gift. No matter what they might try to avoid this eventuality, the fact is that money is an emergent property of value, which is, in turn, an emergent property of perception. It will always reside in a space 2 orders of magnitude away from reality. As their reality is currently moving slowly and progressing slowly, this division is actually quite helpful. But when technology begins to move faster and faster, this division will become an unsustainable bottleneck, causing Tect's children to fall into chaos and suffering. Tect's children embraced this new technology, so much so that the dangers and damage perpetrated by this new system went unnoticed. The abuse of wealth quickly flooded their communities. Tect's children, being social creatures, quickly found it impossible to survive without currency. Now, Zala'auran's coin, having in a way taken on the mind of the collective, quietly began shaping and bending cultures and commerce to its will and its sense of survival. And yet, Tect's children did not seem to notice. Divisions rose among Tect's creations. Those with coin were revered and blessed, while those without were disregarded and tossed aside. Meanwhile, as the gods observed these changes, Tect became angry at Zala'auran, claiming deception and trickery. Zala'auran took no heed and simply turned away. As generations came and left, the children of Tect advanced faster and faster. Soon they began to manipulate materials themselves, extracting, combining, and producing a vast number of materials and mechanical devices. Devices of unbelievable complexity spotted Tect's world as children continued to investigate the nuances of the universe and continued to devise more and more refined methods for controlling its forces and materials to suit their desires. Yet all the while, the divisions continued to grow. After all, this is exactly what Zala had planned. Zala knew that once a currency was introduced, an inescapable reality would set in. Even if you distributed all of the coins evenly among all of Tect's children, an ancient law would immediately take hold. If you had 10 children and gave each child 1 coin, then had them randomly hand another child their coin at each iteration, the distribution would quickly become imbalanced. Go ahead, try it for yourself. Grab a pair of dice and draw 12 dots on a piece of paper. For each dot, roll the dice. Move that dot's coin to the dot the dice indicates. After some few iterations, some few dots will hold most of the coins. Well, then we just need to redistribute the coins, you might say. Sure, go ahead. The clustering will happen again and again and again. No matter how often you attempt to redistribute the wealth, the inequality resurfaces every single time. It's not a matter of some dots working harder than others. It's an inevitable mathematical fact. Oh, but you think you earned your money? That your financial status is a factor of your hard work, right? Wrong. If everybody in the world worked as hard as you, the financial disparity we see today would still be alive and kicking. Though Tect's children had made some incredible advancements and created works of art that left the gods themselves breathless, they simply could not overcome the destructive and divisive powers of Zala-Aran's coin. It was with regret and sadness that Tect was forced to watch his children fail. The gods did not destroy Tect's children. They simply destroyed themselves. Where there is currency, there will always be kings. Money hijacks our natural instincts for survival, which indirectly keeps the individual from becoming their best possible self. Though currency has brought us out of the Dark Ages and helped us become what we are today, it may be time to reconsider our means of resource allocation and distribution. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. 1 Corinthians 13. I am not a religious person, but there is power to that verse. Complexity theory reveals that all systems undergo phase changes. Often, as a system gains energy, growth and advancement accelerate. Money is exchanged and everything seems amazing. But at a certain technological level, there is a technology-induced phase change where money begins to hinder progress. Unfortunately, money has already been so interwoven into our collective awareness that we are incapable of decoupling from this currency-driven system. So, we endure the 1%. We endure hunger and starvation. Funding is cut, and important research is stifled, all while those who have money engage in criminal behavior. Corporate and political corruption overwhelms our lives, while Zeroth Law silently watches as we carry out our own demise. Ultimately, our species' salvation hinges on mastering extraterrestrial survival. But what of the path we take to get there? This is called Up the Gravity Well, overcoming gravity and fulfilling our potential. We reach for the stars and yearn to seize that great expanse they swim in, yet the solution to world hunger continues to evade us. Whether a product of ignorance, arrogance, or hubris, to covet dominion over the cosmos when our self-appointed stewardship of our own planet has been an abject failure is to provoke a perfectly tailored incubator for catastrophe. The probability that humanity meets an unseemly demise radically increases with each passing century that we have not developed an open, readily available, class-agnostic technology for interstellar travel. As alarmist as that might sound, consider the fact that even if our species somehow manages to survive without ever establishing a stable, self-sufficient collective anywhere else, our sun will run out of fissile material in approximately 5 billion years. When this happens, Sol, our star, will enter its red giant life cycle, which will increase its radius by about 1 astronomical unit. It's not clear whether or not it will engulf the Earth. Either way, at this point, not even artificial life will be possible. Some theories are even more bleak, giving us only 1 billion years before oxygen levels plummet below life-sustaining levels. Since life stepped onto the scene, our planet has witnessed at least 17 major cataclysms, 5 of which were extinction-level events. Fortunately, our solar system has settled down quite a lot since then, dramatically decreasing the probability of asteroid impacts. All the same, the probability that humanity will even last another 1 billion years anchored to Earth is infinitesimally small. Not to rub salt in a wound, but we haven't even touched on humanity's own designer threats, like nuclear weapons and global pandemics fueled by worldwide traveling capabilities. Hopeful visions of humanity. I absolutely love humanity. I believe we have what it takes to trek through the cosmos and ensure humanity's continued existence by seeding human colonies throughout the galaxy. Let us stand back for a moment and consider this from the outside. From a more objective point of view, we still struggle with war, disease, famine, hunger, homelessness, and corruption, to name a simple few. Our world is drenched in terrible ideas and notions of power and greed. Who are we to decide to pepper the galaxy with such things? Suppose we were to make contact with other sentient races. What is the likelihood that some group of radicals decide that our new friends fit the description of some ancient references to demonic entities? Suppose a scientific survey mission is sent out by an intergalactic supercorporation, and they discover a primitive proto-humanoid species. Suppose that this supercorp is lacking sufficient manpower in one of their mining efforts on another planet. What are the chances that these primitive humanoids are exploited or even enslaved? I would like to think that becoming spacefaring marks a specific graduation in the social and psychological evolution of a species, that traversing the universe is a rite of passage. I would like to believe that such an accomplishment says, we did it. We overcame our differences, expanded our horizons, and unified as the human supraorganism optima. We are ready to reach out, as we have already conquered ourselves inwardly. We have bested disease and sickness. We have vanquished hunger and war, and we are ready to take our first step out of infancy and into galactic adulthood. It would be nice if that were true. Alas, I would be remiss to allow myself to folly with such thoughts. Consider a world in which corruption, hunger, and criminal propensities have been conquered. Imagine that the inhabitants of this world found a way to replace the drives for wealth and power with that of health, happiness, and fulfillment. A world where its inhabitants move in collective harmony, yet also value the individual. Is this not the impossible dream, the ultimate social ideal? Who among us is not haunted by the notion that such dreams are but fantasies, impossibilities? Even if such a state is impossible, is there not some closest theoretical state? The problems with taking to the stars as things currently stand. Recently, both Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos opened the floodgates for commercializing space, branded as a new economic age of near-Earth space commerce. Rightly so, a rising chorus of concerned citizens who worry that this will further separate the already well-spaced economic classes believe that this milestone, if you can call it that, may very well be the start of an Elysium-esque divide. While these concerned citizens have based their conclusion on mental extrapolations of past experience, I have based my conclusion on a more rigorous analysis of the situation. In fact, this is at the core of what has been my research for the past 4 years. The true problem with the commercialization of space is much more sinister. The remainder of this article will reveal some of my own research and analyses. At this point, I will expressly warn the reader that my work is far from complete, to say nothing of replicated studies or peer review. The information I present should be taken as it is given, as an incomplete analysis from a research project that may very well continue for another decade or longer. This information is not verified fact. This is simply what I have uncovered thus far. The surface-etched symptoms. Allow me to quickly recite humanity's current ills, whether these are intentional acts of malice or results of negligent leaders. The fact is that these ills remain in full force today. Involuntary hunger, property crimes, violent crimes, crimes of passion, corporate corruption, political corruption, publication of bad science as a result of coercion, impeded technological evolution as a result of mounting bad science, unemployment, homelessness, poor public education, bullying, war, energetic and material waste due to unwanted ads, spam, planned obsolescence, poor quality products that give rise to entire business sectors just to handle the failures of other businesses. Need I go on? Pollution, slow governmental reactions to emergencies and other major environmental changes, etc., etc., etc. The list can obviously go on for quite some time. My point in displaying this is to get us to think about the incredible amounts of wasted time, energy, material, people power, and other wasted resources that are utterly lost to the unnecessary and nonsensical oblivion of bad decisions. I make this point to accentuate the incredible feats we have the means to accomplish, yet we don't, because we have diverted resources to patch up the holes made by foolish actions and greed-driven decisions. The underlying disease. As I mentioned previously, I have only been researching this full-time for about 4 years, but I have been studying, wondering, and gathering data for the 10 years before that. I could not bring myself to take this on as a full-time research project unless I was absolutely positive as to the core causes, and I had a fairly solid framework for a solution. As it turns out, the fundamental issue is a two-part linchpin, partly based in the thermodynamics of our socioeconomic system and partly based in psychology, specifically in the psychology of what motivates us, the self-determination theory of motivation. The solution, as it turns out, is far simpler than one might expect. Be that as it is, the implementation of the solution is a fair bit more complicated than the solution itself. The underlying disease, as it were, orients itself around our use of money. This is actually a very interesting problem because, as it turns out, the economists touted, quote, 3 functions of money are the culprits, not so much money itself. 2 of the 3 functions of money fly directly in the face of 3 of the 4 laws of thermodynamics. So much so that nearly 80% of all labor and work performed is lost to an accelerated rate of entropy simply because of the use of money. Let me repeat that because this is well worth pointing out. Nearly 80% of all labor and work performed is lost to an accelerated rate of entropy simply because of the use of money. Now that is something to stop and think about. Consider how much we claim we cannot achieve because we, quote, don't have the funding. Wouldn't you say? Money's 3 functions are: 1. A store of value. Directly violates the first and second laws of thermodynamics. 2. A unit of account. No direct violation, but may violate depending on the methods and use of unit accounting. 3. A medium of exchange. Violates the first and second laws of thermodynamics. The other linchpin is psychological, but it's reared its head because of the effects of money having attempted to sidestep the unavoidable laws of thermodynamics. This boils down to an incredible lack of self-actualizing individuals. The proposed solution, pending necessary research. Let me make this very clear. My proposal, thus far, is not a silver bullet. In fact, I don't believe such a thing exists. My proposal merely reverses the incredible damage perpetrated by the 3 hailed functions of money and maximizes each individual's chances to become a self-actualizing individual. I will not spell it out here because, well, I cannot. My solution is a robust, yet intricate interweaving of psychology, economics, sociology, thermodynamics, and machine learning. Even at that, I have many years of simulations to finish to even begin to feel confident in my theory's potential. What I can say is, imagine a world where corruption is literally impossible. The entire motive force behind it doesn't even exist. Crime is reduced by 98% across the board. My analysis of the FBI's crime statistics indicates that over 90% of all crime is financially motivated. Go figure. Companies are no longer pressured by investors to cut corners and release their product early because such pressures would simply not exist. Bad science would still happen, but it would be few and far between. This alone is capable of accelerating our technological advancements by orders of magnitude. Self-actualizing individuals would begin to pepper the globe, theoretically increasing productivity, harmony, social cohesion, product quality, happiness, and a sense of collective purpose. Education would become an unrecognizable god, with educators who feel fulfilled and valued, and with the amplified stream of information from education researchers directly to the educators themselves. Our college graduates would put today's Ivy League valedictorians to shame. Self-actualizing individuals are more conscientious, more loving, more willing to help others, emotionally intelligent, highly intrinsically motivated, and have a sense of wanting to give back to society. Now imagine if even every third human was like this. All willing and able give back to society in a manner that is most fulfilling to them personally. Yes, dirty jobs would still exist, and yes, there are people that absolutely love doing them. The amount of resources and labor that is saved can be diverted and redirected to massive projects, often called megastructures in science fiction, including generation ships and extraterrestrial colony construction. Again, the list literally goes on and will continue to be added to. Becoming a spacefaring civilization and what it should mean to us. Without a doubt, I would absolutely love to stand on the bridge of humanity's first generation ship. But for me, that's not what it means to become a spacefaring civilization. To even dabble in the idea, when we are scratching our heads trying to figure out why we produce enough food for every human, yet we can't seem to manage accomplishing it, is a testament to just how badly our social motivational foci have been completely scrambled. Becoming spacefaring should, and does for me, mean that we have conquered ourselves. We have come together as siblings, put our differences aside, and found a way to love humanity itself as a single, functioning life form. Taking our first journey to the next closest star system shouldn't be about corporate interests or expanding the human empire. It should be about humanity coming into its own, discovering its vast potential, and becoming the newly maturing member of a greater galactic community. It should be about exploration and unity, not about money. In becoming a proper spacefaring species, we will have proven to ourselves that we can. Abraham Maslow was a psychologist, and he designed what is called the hierarchy of needs. Now, these are basic needs that humans have to first survive. So you have your basic needs, which are your physiological needs. So food, water, sleep, warmth, rest, and then you have safety needs. It's a second tier up: security, safety, shelter. Okay, these are the needs that you need to feel safe. You need to feel protected from the world around you. And then once you have those established, you jump up to the next tier, the third tier, which now goes from basic needs to psychological needs. So your first level of psychological needs are needs of feeling belonged, right? Needs of feeling loved, accepted, okay? Intimate relationships, friends, families, that sort of a thing. And the next psychological rung up is esteem needs. We need to feel appreciated, accepted. We need to feel accomplished. We need to feel recognized for what we do. These are needs that we psychologically need to be, feel good. And then the next step up is needs of self-fulfillment or self-actualization. And these are needs like achieving great achievements, fulfilling your potential, becoming your best self. Now, Maslow's hierarchy, which is often depicted, as being a triangle or a pyramid, it's interesting to note that our needs as humans are radically different from the needs of the market. And this is kind of where I'm going. When we exchange money for foods and goods and services, there is a fundamental shift in needs that there is a conversion, okay? There's a conversion that happens between our needs as humans into the needs of the market. Now, any sufficiently complicated system, in order to survive, has needs. The market's needs are objectively contrary to the human's needs. Not only that, but it converts human needs into its needs in a way that actually hurts us. So, for instance, let's take a look at somebody who is addicted to heroin or methamphetamines or whatever. Now, that person's natural drives, their natural drive has been hijacked by the chemical. And because the drugs are illegal, they need to find a way to get that money, because the money is the all-powerful substance, right? It's the omnipotent sort of, it really is kind of a god, right? It's a little mini god. It's got the power to be converted into anything that is of value. That alone, that right there, is the need of the market. Now, the junkie's need is instantaneously converted into the market's need. So, in fulfilling his own, neurochemical needs, just the simple fact that money exists is altering his motives. It's switching from the natural, supply of possibly growing poppies or whatever you would need to do to naturally obtain the substance, to an investment into the market's needs. So right there we see a conversion from a human's needs. Never mind that it's an artificial need, that it's a need that's been brought about because of their addiction. It is still a need that person has, and it has been converted into the market's needs. Now let's look at the needs of a chemist, a researcher that works for a pharmacology company, right? Somebody that produces chemicals and medications to be used in medicine. Now, let's say that the company has spent a lot of money investigating a series of medicines, or I guess potential medicines, and a sort of chain reaction happens. The company's not doing well, so the investors are freaking out and having conferences with the board, and there's meetings with the CEO and the CFO and just a bunch of different big players in this company, and they decide that money needs to come from somewhere. So these guys are frustrating that they're not making money, something needs to happen, this product needs to get on the shelves no matter what the cost. Well, where does that decision come from? That is a need of the market. That is not a need of the human. The company itself is almost like a node in the market intelligence. It's almost like its own little entity within the larger market entity. And it needs to survive, right? The company has to survive. So the needs of the market now take over and drive the management to kind of come down on the research team. And the research team, instead of them fulfilling the needs of the customers and the needs of their own psychological well-being are now moved to fulfill the market's needs. Now they have to, they're being pushed to kind of fudge numbers a little bit, or kind of make the research just a little bit more open to interpretation. So that happens. Well, that's the market's needs causing that to happen. That is not the human's needs causing that to happen. So we have a conflict of needs. This happens everywhere. This isn't, here and there. We could spend all day going over different situations and showing how the needs of the market affects our decisions daily, okay? Anywhere from corporate behavior to political behavior to behavior in the courts to behavior, lawyers and the defendants and junkies on the street and, workers at McDonald's, families that need to feed their children. The market's needs, no matter how contrary they are to the human's needs, have infected everything. And this is because of one simple thing, and that is because we have constructed this paywall. We have put everything that is necessary behind it, and you absolutely need money to get to it. Current big example is the moratorium that the CDC has put on rent, that you cannot evict anybody for not paying rent right now. This is actually a unique case where the needs of the human are being displayed out loud in front of everybody. The needs of the human against the needs of the market. There is a conflict. We have realized that so many people are going to lose their homes and be cast out and put on the streets if we don't do something about this. Now, there are two very crazy sides to this, and both sides have good points, but only under the context of the needs of the market. In that our current world is so fixated and so attached and so deeply rooted into what the market needs to survive, it is a bad thing to let them not pay rent. However, from the perspective of humanitarianism, of having some sort of heart for those around us, forcing them out of their homes in droves is a bad thing also. So the fight really is over. Is the market more important, or are these humans more important? And that's what it's come down to. Now, of course, it's easy to say humans are more important in this situation, and I agree, except that there's also market stability. Once the landlords start going out of business and those places go into foreclosure, people are going to be having to leave their places anyway because the banks are going to foreclose on the properties. It's going to cause just echoes throughout the market that are going to affect all sorts of different things, because we are so attached to it, because we are so anchored into the needs of the market, and we are so used to setting the needs of the market above our own needs. And this last example kind of puts a pin in this, and let me explain why. So the market has a proto-mind, okay? It is a mind. It has needs, it has wants, it has desires, and it has drives, it has motivations, things that it wants to accomplish. And when we're talking about the market, when we're talking about this proto-mind, it is not a fully cognizant thing. I mean, obviously, but it is composed of little tiny voices in everybody's head that tells them to do certain things that are necessary to keep their business alive, or that are necessary to make more money. And so the market, it's this proto-mind, I guess you could call it, really does have a personality. Although you could very, I think we are very justified in labeling the mind of the market as psychopathic or sociopathic, because it is. I mean, all of the behaviors it exhibits are to the T sociopathic and psychopathic. Now, back to the carrot and the stick. Let's imagine everybody on Earth as a part of a giant human herd with, a half a foot between each person, just this incredible herd of humans. And imagine that there is a magical, George Washington, green little George Washington head floating in front of everybody. And it's, come this way, come this way. If you come this way, I'll get you what you need. I'll get you what you need, I promise. Keep coming this way, keep coming this way. So everybody's just kind of following these little Washington heads, all right? So it's not a carrot, it's George Washington, sure. Now, everybody is following this, but remember, the market's needs, what the market wants, the direction it's pulling us, the direction it is, come this way, keep coming this way, is not the direction that is healthy for us. And very literally, this is not the case. It's the market's needs and desires are in many instances in direct contradiction to what humans need. I mean, this is why when there are no jobs for people to get, people that are capable of working, that want to work, very well could expend their energy and work. But nobody wants them to for them because they don't have what is necessary to pay them. Which is, to me, just kind of this crazy, silly thing that we do, but that's the way it is. Okay, so we've got this herd of humans. They're all following their little individual George Washington head in one direction. Now, the entire herd, far off in the distance, they see this huge super volcano. It's got smoke coming and billowing out of the top of it. It's not going to blow or anything, but it's a volcano. And we can see that the heads are leading us straight into this volcano. It's gonna take a while, it's clear off in the distance, but at some point we are all going to get there, march right up the side of this volcano, tip over the summit, go down into the crater, and clunk right into the throat of the volcano. It's going to happen because nobody knows how to not follow these heads. We don't know how to survive without these heads. But it is very obvious that that is the direction that the market is taking us. There is no question about it. And now imagine what would happen if somebody were to say, fuck you, George, I'm out of here. I'm not going that way. I'm not going to end up burning up in a pool of lava. That's not my fate. I don't want to go there. So he takes a hard left and starts, laterally trying to move through this herd of humans. Now, think about this. I mean, really think about this. How difficult would it be to maneuver through a herd of humans just full power forward going straight for this thing? And we're not talking about, some humans. We're talking about 8 billion humans. This is the force, this is the momentum that this huge herd of creatures has just moving straight for this volcano. It would be very near to impossible. I honestly don't think anybody would be able to get out of this. It would be akin to trying to cross a river at the rapids. It's just not doable. And not only is it not doable as far as, trying to go either against or traverse laterally through the momentum of this herd, it's not doable in the same sense that once you stop following old George, you immediately cease receiving what you need to sustain your life. So if you're going to do this, if you're even going to attempt to do this, you're going to have to, take a few steps sideways and go forward for, a few steps sideways and go forward for a few steps, which is just, that's not going to get you there either. It is an impossible situation. And yes, this is a symbolic expression of what we are doing. Okay? I don't think there is a human alive that doesn't understand this concept, that doesn't understand that there is no amount of there are no amount of laws or regulations or any sort of legal coercive motion that can be put into place that would stop the negative effects of the market. We're going to be talking about money, specifically what economists call the three functions of money. This is going to really help us understand exactly what money is and how exactly it works. Now, originally, I believe there were 4 functions of money, but they found that the 4th function could actually be described through the other 3 functions, so we're not going to cover that. But currently, today, the recognized 3 functions of money are 1, unit of account, 2, medium of exchange, and 3, a store of value. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief definition and explanation of each of these 3 functions. So you understand when an economist says or talks about any one of these 3 functions, what exactly they're referring to. So the first is a unit of account. This is probably what you think it is. It's basically the capability of ledgering it, right? Something that you can ledger. So a unit of account is really just having something that's quantifiable that you can track with basically mathematics. The second is a medium of exchange. And again, this is probably what you're thinking, but what we're talking about here is something that we can use to represent the value of any number of any other things. This is supposed to help avoid situations like trying to trade a cow for, say the only thing that you have is a cow and you need a dozen eggs. Well, how are you going to work this trade out with the chicken farmer? Enter money. Now we can make the exchange without trying to figure out these often very difficult bartering situations. And finally, the third is the store of value. What this allows is for you to be able to store the value of the exchanges that you perform throughout the day. So the apple farmer sells all of his apples, he between, I guess it's September and October, and then he's got a whole year to wait before his next harvest. So he's able now to sell all of his apples and store the money that he got from those sales without having to worry or deal with apples that begin to rot and corrode over time. So instead of, trying to keep all of his apples and then sell them as he needs money, now he's capable of selling off all of his apples, taking the money, putting it in storage, and using the money as his needs arise accordingly. All right, so those were your 3 functions of money. Okay, and now we're going to kind of totally switch topics here, and we're going to talk about thermodynamics. And there is a reason for this, and we will get to that in a little bit. But I'm going to explain these concepts very clearly. I've got some examples to help with understanding these. So don't fret if you're not a science person, or if you're not into, if you're not a particle physicist or a chemist. Okay. So there are 4 laws of thermodynamics. The zeroth, first, second, and third. I know it's odd to have a zeroth law, but that's how it kind of played out. So that is that. Okay, so the zeroth law basically says that if you had, say, 3 cups of coffee, all right, and cup A was 120 degrees. Cup B was 120 degrees. So cup A is equal thermally to cup B. Okay, it's the same temperature. And if cup B was, if there's a third cup, cup C, and it's 120 degrees, well, you could say that B and C are equal too. So if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is also equal to C. So that's about it, okay? Well, that's not about it, but that's the general idea, all right? The Zeroth Law is a law of thermal equilibrium. The first law of thermodynamics is the law of conservation. The law that says, and this should definitely ring a bell, that you cannot create or destroy energy, okay? This is the law of conservation. The second law is the law of entropy. This is the law that today's quote referenced, okay, the law of entropy. And the law of entropy basically states that entropy always increases. Now, for our purposes, you know what? Actually, let's cover the third law really quickly. Then we'll circle back around here. Okay, third law is something that in our context we don't even really have to worry about. But just for the sake of just keeping the four laws and explaining them all together, the third law of thermodynamics, a bit of a bizarre one. The basic idea is that a perfectly crystalline structure at 0 degrees Kelvin has an entropy of 0. So it's kind of not super relevant to our situation, but it is an important law. Otherwise, so yeah, give credit where credit is due, I suppose. Okay, now the big elephant that's in the room that we need to take care of is what the fuck is value? When we say, that money is a store of value, that it represents a value, that it is a unit of account of a value, it's a medium of exchange as a value. What is that? What does that even mean to us? Well, value really has no direct tie to energy or matter or the usefulness of something. It is value is a figment of our imaginations. Value really has no bearing on the physical world. Now, our ancestors, that when money was kind of introduced and created, and the idea of exchange and what is valuable, what is not, they really didn't understand the world the way that we do today. So you can't really pin the blame on anybody, but it kind of is our fault for perpetuating this, for sticking with this idea of value. And let me explain this, because this is really central to why this whole thing is so fucked up, and why there are so many problems that just kind of sprout from this idea. So let's think about what is meant when somebody says the educational value of something, or that has potential value, or it's a valuable idea. An experience is valuable. Food has value. It has nutritional value. I mean, we use this word in so many crazy different ways that philosophers, economists have had a hell of a time really trying to pin down what exactly value is. There's a few different ideas out there, and most of them really orient around just the basic idea that value is simply sentiment, how we feel about something. Okay? And you might say, well, that's not true. Food really does have value. I value food because it provides energy for my body. And yes, it does, but the value does not come from the energy that it provides to your body. The value actually comes from the fact that you value your body receiving energy. And let me explain this a little bit more. True value comes from, as I said, how it makes us feel. So if something makes you feel good, drugs have value because they make people feel good. Food has value because it makes you feel good. Well, what about the things that don't immediately make you feel good, like exercising, pumping iron, working really hard till your muscles are sore and fatigued? It still has value because it will make you feel good later. The runner's high, right? Even though you don't feel great just starting off. After about a good 15, 20 minutes of a good solid run, you start to feel the endorphins pumping through your system, right? And you're, wow, man, I'm really feeling good. That's the value. It's a delayed value. You don't get it right off the bat, but it has value to it. It makes you feel good. Not just how it makes you feel like instantaneously in the moment, right then and there, but how it makes you feel knowing that your body is healthy. You are on track to becoming a healthier person. Same thing with weightlifting, right? You don't specifically enjoy feeling sore and tired, but you do enjoy the health benefits and how that makes you feel. Is that worth it? Is it worth going through, the kind of the tough part to receive the health benefits and feeling good benefits? Like, I like how I look when I'm fit, when I exercise every day. I like it. It makes me feel good. So value is totally reducible to sentiment, how it makes you feel. Now, the thing that blows my mind is that we are currently in the year 2021, and we still run our entire economic system on the value of $1. But wait a second, value is completely subjective. It's based on emotion. It's based on how you feel about something. And emotions are inherently unstable. So we've got a worldwide market that we utterly and completely have rooted our livelihood into, yet it is inherently unstable. It is the most unstable thing. Have you ever watched the marketplace and values just jumping all over the place? These values are totally based on opinion. 100%. The people that kind of, I guess, influence the value of different companies' stocks, their influence is totally based on opinion. Yeah, sure, you've got the guys that, do market analyses and go through and check out a company and list out all of their assets and try to figure out the value of everything and their employees and yada, yada, yada. But when it really comes down to it, like, it's really kind of a judgment call at the end. Like, they're probably about, worth about $3 billion. It's completely crazy. Think about just how crazy volatile it is. Elon Musk and China, right? Elon Musk posted a post about that his company is going to be getting or selling off their Bitcoin or something to that effect. And China makes Bitcoin mining, they start coming down on Bitcoin miners, right? What happens? It completely crashed the system across the entire planet just because of these two incidents. The whole GameStop fiasco. Musk again, right? When he smoked some weed on Joe Rogan's podcast, their stock tanked. See, opinion influences the market. Why would we ever construct a system like this? We have over and over and over and over and over again felt the negative effects of having what we need as a stable system totally built on something that is just jello, like literally just complete nonsense. Now, not only is it a bad idea to root something that's supposed to be stable or that we rely on to be stable in something that is inherently unstable. So, that's strike one, right? Not only is that like a major problem with the system, but two of the three functions of money are in direct conflict with three of the four laws of thermodynamics. And let me explain. Actually, before I explain, let's revisit this episode's quote, because I think this is going to make a little bit more sense now. Okay, now remember, this is a quote by Sir Arthur Stanley Eddington. He says, "If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for it but to collapse in deepest humiliation." I am going to show you and leave absolutely no question of it, right, without a shadow of doubt, that our use of money, the three functions of money, how we use money, what money is in direct conflict with three of the four laws of thermodynamics. And this has a profound impact on how we use energy, how efficient we are with our energy use. As a part of my research, I've traced out several of these threads, and several is a understatement, like a lot, okay? And each one is indisputably connected to the fact that money is not, that we are trying to force a pretend system onto a physical world that follows physical laws, and that just doesn't work. We are, without realizing it, we are building up just an incredible amount of entropy, and it's fucking us off. Like, oh God, I wish I could just get like a $1 billion grant to just dive into this research, full throttle, because this is something that needs to be known by everybody. We've got to figure something else out. It is so fucking nuts. I've estimated, my current estimate is that between 80 and 90% of all work performed by humans is completely wasted and just lost to the entropy of the system. Completely. Like, poof, gone. 80 to 90%. Like, poof, what the fuck? And we were like, scratching our heads trying to figure out why we can't feed everybody on the planet, and why people don't have jobs, and why all these fucked up things are always happening. I can tell you exactly why. Because between 80 and 90% of everything that you are doing is going right the fuck out the window. And a large part of this is because of the whole, this value problem, right? How do you quantify value? It's this fabrication, this thing that we make up. And here's the kind of weird thing about all of this. We tend to confuse value with energy, and it's not. It's completely not. So when we think of value, we think, okay, how much energy do we need for the system to work, right? How much energy is required here? Gasoline has value because it has energy. No. That's not at all, not even close to how it works. Gasoline has value because you like to be able to get places on your own that are far away without relying on public transportation or, a horse or whatever, right? You like to have that freedom. You like to have that capability. You need to get to work. You need to take your kids to school. That's why it has value, because you like the things that you can get from utilizing it in or with your vehicle. And nothing whatsoever to do with energy at all. It is a completely separate entity, a unit. So towards the end of this episode, we're going to go over a theory I call harmonized state potential, which may be able to answer this as a problem, right? It's in its infancy, and it's got a lot of work, but as far as I can tell, it's capable of replacing what we think of as value. It's capable, not replacing, it's capable of merging the two in a productive sort of way, in a useful and efficient manner. Well, theoretically, right? Have you ever worked with somebody or just known somebody that makes everything way more difficult than it needs to be? You know the kind of person I'm talking about, right? They're usually kind of a teddy bearish, kind of lovable person, and you hate to get mad at them, but they're just always making everything so fucking difficult. It's like, it's just one of those situations. It's really frustrating. Yeah, by the end of this episode, you're gonna see humanity like that. You're gonna be like, oh my god, why are we doing it like this? What the fuck? Guys, come on, what are we doing? How are we possibly okay with what we're doing right now?